So a few months ago, I was counseling this one student. She wanted to pursue her master's in computer science, and initially we decided that she would apply to American universities. We shortlisted some universities, we got her letters of recommendation, we wrote down the essays, and just a week before application, she comes to me and she tells me that she now wants to switch to Ireland or Germany. And when I probed, I found out that she's gotten her information from content creators online. And it's because of their advice that she's decided to change her country. So that's when I realized that, okay, a lot of the students now in 2025 are actually looking up to content creators or companies posting content on YouTube for study abroad advice. And so my team and I actually thought that we need to check whether people are posting legit content. So the team has assembled a few clips of popular content creators and companies and their opinions about different countries or the study abroad process in general. And I'm going to watch the views one by one and react to them. I'm going to give my perspective, I'm going to tell you whether I agree with their opinions or not, and I'm going to bring into the fore all the experience that I have counseling students into this decision or into my comments. By the way, I'm fully aware that this laptop has a few hideous stickers over here on the left side. I'll have you know that this laptop doesn't belong to me. It actually belongs to my intern, Hari the intern. And if you don't like these stickers, well, you can actually post it in the comments. You can tag Hari the intern and you can tell him whether you like the stickers or not. So let's begin. Let's start with the first clip.
The government of UK thought that it would provide...
Okay, so right off the bat, we have a popular content creator. His name is Yash Mitra. He's an Indian guy. I think he's based out of Delhi. And he's been doing YouTube videos for a long time. Generally, I agree with his views, but what I have noticed is that while he started producing study abroad content, in the last 1 or 2 years, his focus has shifted more to moving abroad, working abroad, and different visa pathways. So I'm not sure what he's going to talk about in this. Let's have a watch and then I'll react.
Provide 30,000 more students every year. But what happened was 300,000 students started coming in every year, especially from India, Nigeria, and many other countries like that. This resulted in overcrowded postgraduate courses because there were shorter degrees, huge influx of mature students, many even bringing dependents who themselves wanted jobs in the UK, most enrolling in one-year low-cost Tier 3 universities, which would allow them to just use this opportunity to enter the UK and settle down over there. Now, the UK did not prepare for this. And due to that, today, there's very few jobs available in the market, and the UK is really a very different sort of a job market as of today than what it used to be just 5 years ago. And as a result of that, as of today, I won't even recommend any one of you guys to go to the UK.
Okay, so right off the bat, a few things over here. He's generally right when he says that the UK's job market isn't as strong as what it was. He's also right when he says that the number of immigrants far exceeds what the country can handle. Where he is wrong is when he makes these blanket statements that he says that students shouldn't consider the UK at all. If you take a look at the skill shortage list in the UK, you have many professions where there's still short staff. And if you were to get into one of those fields, so like let's say you get into computer science or into medicine, you are easily going to get a job. I think the other thing that he's not mentioning or over here, I don't know why, is that it also depends upon which university you actually enroll into. So let's say you get an offer for a master's in biomedical engineering from Imperial College London, which is ranked second in the world, by the way. Do you really think you're not going to get a job? Or if you do, let's say, an MBA from London Business School, do you really think you're not going to get a good job at bulge bracket investment banks or at consulting companies? So while I agree with his premise, I don't completely agree with his recommendation that you shouldn't go to the UK. Right? So that's my take on it. Now let's go for the next one.
Are you thinking about moving?
Wait, this guy is Pushpek Sidhu. So I think, this guy is doing study abroad videos now? Because I actually thought that he actually does like food videos and slice of life kind of videos. I actually follow him, by the way, on Instagram. So I don't know what we're in for over here. Let's just take a look.
Moving to Canada? Well, let me tell you why you should move to Canada. First of all, we have free healthcare. So if you ever get hurt or you're really sick, you can always go to the hospital with the peace of mind knowing that you won't have a massive bill to pay. And that's really important because it's gonna save you a lot of money. Money that you'll need to pay other bills. Like paying $1,000 a month on groceries. Or probably more because the grocery prices in Canada are very inflated due to 2 or 3 companies owning the whole market. Or like paying $200 a month on your phone and internet bills because there's 2 telecommunications companies in Canada that basically own the whole market, so they inflate the prices to whatever they want it to be. And rent, because average rent in Toronto is $3,000 a month. But if you go to the outskirts of Toronto, you can pay $2,000 a month to live in a basement. But if you get a really good job where you save $50,000 a year, you can get out of that basement in about 20 years. Because that's how long it'll take you to afford an average house in Canada, which is $1 million. But don't worry, universal healthcare will cover the depression.
So he's absolutely right about this. I did my MBA in Canada, and so I know what he's talking about. He's right about the free healthcare part, by the way. So I had this situation where one of my roommates, one day after dinner, he suddenly started saying that he couldn't see from his left eye. And this is a true story, by the way. And we rushed him to the closest hospital in Toronto. They basically found out that he was severely dehydrated. There was nothing else wrong with him. And that's why his bodily functions were shutting down. And all of that was done for free. All right. But the part that he's not telling you is that because the system's free, there's too much load on the system. And so even to get this small checkup done for my roommate, it took us 5 hours. So we reached the hospital at 8 o'clock at night and we came back at 1 o'clock. And this was just for one checkup. The doctor probably met him for just 2 minutes during that whole time, right? And so in Canada, the reality is that even though healthcare is free, you're gonna have to wait for a long time, which is why you see a lot of people in Canada actually go to different countries for medical tourism if they can't afford to delay their surgery. I mean, if you have something like a knee replacement surgery, you can afford to wait for like 6 or 8 months. But if you need to do some sort of surgery related to your heart or related to your brain, you can't really wait that long, right? So he's right, but he's not telling you that, it takes a lot of time to get appointments with doctors. And yeah, he's right about everything else. The rent is too high in Canada right now. There are a few companies, I think you have Metro and Loblaws that have kind of, completely cornered the grocery market. Even when it comes to phone, you have Ellis and Rogers, which have completely cornered the market. So yeah, Canada does suffer a problem with monopolies, not just in these two areas, even banking. They have like 4 or 5 banks. That's it, right? So he's right about all of that. So let's have a look at the next video.
Hi, and welcome to What Are Indians Doing Abroad. So what are you doing here? Why did you move to Dublin?
I came back 3 years back as a student, and then I found a job.
So what did you come here to study?
I'm into medical field and I work in a clinical research company. So I took a master's related to that, which is regulatory affairs, master's in regulatory affairs.
How much did you pay for it?
It costs about around 10 to 11 lakhs.
So what's the average salary people make in your field?
Well, it starts around 37 and then goes up with your experience, and yeah.
How do you feel about the living expenses in Ireland?
It's actually very much affordable. Like what you earn, you can meet all your expenses here in Ireland. If you come here as a student and if you go for a part-time, definitely you can make up to the living expenses. And also if you are coming with an education loan or something, you'll definitely be able to meet that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I can't find anything to disagree with that. So the thing with Ireland or European countries in general is that these are aging societies. You have a lot of old people, you don't have enough young people, and therefore a lot of people require medical care, more care than what is required by people in India, because India is a young population, right? And that's why a lot of medical professions are in demand, not just in Ireland, but in all aging countries. So that includes countries like Canada, that includes countries like Australia, that includes the other European countries. So if you're planning to actually go for an MBBS or a nursing kind of a program, or dentistry even, you will have a good career, not just in Ireland, in any of the other countries as well. And specifically talking about salaries, again, she's completely right. Ireland actually has one of the highest per capita incomes in the world. Maybe you can fact check me on this, but I think its per capita income is higher than $100,000 a year. That's higher than the United States, right? So completely agree with this. No further opinions about this. So the next one.
If you can afford it without taking a loan, go to America. Not for the degree, for the experience. You get nothing, bro. I am a dropout. I don't even have a degree. But what US gave me is unparalleled to what an Indian environment could have given me. It's just that way of thinking without caring about dusre kya sochenge. And America is just the best example. Even Europe doesn't have it.
Okay, so he's talking a bit about the cultural aspect of the United States, and I'm going to put some background to that. What he says is right. The US is unlike any other country. You guys need to understand, the US is a country of immigrants, all right? The people who were the first people to come to the United States were pioneers from Europe. So it's in their DNA, exploring, doing new things, entrepreneurship, it's in their DNA. And because of that, they think very differently from other people. They're more risk-taking, they're more tolerant to failure, all right? And everything in the US is just supersized. I mean, you go to stadiums that are larger than life, you even go to movie theaters and order a popcorn, you're not going to get anything smaller than this, all right? So it's just like the scale of everything is massive. That probably helps you think big in the long run because you can see big things. Also, like I said, their society is more tolerant to failure, so it makes you more risk tolerance, which I feel is always good, especially when you're young, because if you're not going to take risks when you're young, when are you going to actually take them, right? So he's right when he says that you should go to the United States not just for the education, but for the sort of cultural training that you get. It's going to help you for the rest of your life.
MS in US और MBA in IM इंजीनियर का सवाल है. अगर तेरे को बाहर जाना है तो भाई लग जा, GRE कर और बाहर जा. मेरा वही शौक था. I got through Stanford way back in 2005. उस समय हो गया था, पर then some people brainwashed me कि MS के बाद क्या करेगा? PhD करेगा. MS के बाद नौकरी होती है तो PhD करके then you become a teacher. तो I'm a teacher already right now. अगर आपको फील्ड से प्यार है और अब्रॉड जाना है, MS is a beautiful thing to do. अगर लॉन्ग टर्म अब्रॉड जाना है, MS डिग्री ऑफ अब्रॉड इज फैंटाबुलस. अदर ऑप्शन इंडिया के अंदर MBA नामी गिरामी कॉलेज से करते हो तो आपके बहुत भाव हैं. 21 तुम्हारे IIMs हो गया, एक्सेल, FMS, HP जैन, MDA गुड़गांव, एक्सेल राइज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड पे, IIT बॉम्बे, IIT दिल्ली का MBA प्रोग्राम, तो नारसी मुंजी, SIBM एक्सेट्रा. तो भाई आपके बड़े भाव हैं. यू कैन गेट अ हाईएस्ट पैकेज ऑफ 1 करोड़ रुपीज. एवरेज पैकेज 30 से 32 लाख के आसपास का जा रहा है. कट कटा के इंडिया में अगर आपके पास 1.5 लाख आ रहा है तो वैसे ही राजा है भाई. यू विल बिकम इन द टॉप 3% ऑफ द नेशन. प्रो टिप, आप इंडिया में रह के इंडिया में MBA करके भी बाहर जा सकते हो, लाइक आई डिड. आई यूज्ड टू वर्क फॉर जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक, डिड माय MBA in India and then went abroad as well.
Okay, so the person in the video is actually the owner of a company called Cat King, which trains students for Indian management entrance exams. So he does have a bias to play up MBA in India versus going abroad. And I did my MBA abroad. Some of my friends did it in India. So I can tell you what the reality is. Now, first up, I have a problem with this comparison. He's comparing an MS abroad to an MBA in India. All right, this is like comparing apples to oranges, not because of the countries, but because the degrees are different. You're comparing a technical degree to a management degree. All right, so let's do away with that. If you want to compare MBAs, let's compare MBAs abroad versus MBAs in India, right? Now, the reality is that an MBA in India at a top business school will cost you something like 30-35 lakhs. I think ISB is around 40 lakhs. IIM Ahmedabad is around 35 lakhs. And he's not wrong. You can get salaries of up to 1 crores. And average starting salaries after an IIM A, B, C or L management program is in the 35 to 40 lakh rupee range, right? If you're thinking of an MBA abroad, well then, first of all, you're going to have to take a different test. You can either take the GRE or the GMAT. In India, you'll be taking the CAT or the state level CETs. The second thing is that the programs will be far more expensive than what they are in India. So while the top business schools in India do cost 30 to 35 lakhs, those abroad will cost you anywhere above 1 crore. All right. So if you're going to, like, let's say the UK to a London business school, it's going to cost you 80-90 lakh rupees. You go to United States, one of the M7 schools or a Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, it's going to cost you 1.5 crores just in tuition fee. Now, when it comes to the salaries are also proportionately higher. While in India, the highest salary is around 1 crore. If you get into a top business school abroad, 1 crore is kind of the average starting salary. And that's not even including the signing up bonuses, all right? I know students from my own class who started with salaries of 2.5 crores. So yes, you're paying more money, but you're also getting more out of it. Also, the point that he mentions about doing his MBA in India and then going abroad, technically he's right about that. But again, the point that he's not telling you is that you might get passed up for promotions when you go abroad. One of my classmates, he had already done his MBA from IIM Calcutta and he still came to the University of Toronto. And when I asked him why he's done that, what he said is that he was getting passed up for investment banking roles to foreign students or to kids who had gone abroad and who had just done their bachelor's in business, right? So the reason he wanted to do his MBA again abroad after investing all this money, and by the way, he already had a family at that time, so he had to move his entire family. The reason he did that was for better career prospects. So yes, technically you can do your MBA in India and move abroad, but you might get passed up for promotions to some junior guy who's done his MBA from a university that's not that great, right? So again, pick a lane, either do your MBA abroad, invest money, you get more returns, or do it in India. And again, getting into the top ranked business schools in India is way more difficult than getting into the top ranked business schools abroad. You take a look at statistically, you take a look at the acceptance rates of an IIM kind of a business school, it's around 1 or 2%. But you take the top ranked business schools abroad, around 10 to 15% of students get accepted. So that's this whole other thing, right, of what's easier to get into. So fine, let's take a look at the next one.
Second thing is कि अपनी खुद से research नहीं करना चाहता आदमी. मतलब you don't want to do your own research. You want to rely on a counselor. If counselor gives you tier 3 university, you'll go over there. If they give you tier 1, you'll go over there. So obviously बात है, counselor हमेशा tier 3 university ही देते हैं. Especially जो counselor आपको पंजाब में इधर मिलेंगे. Essentially, we have not seen any good counselors who give tier 1 universities. The reason is that they don't get commission. और आपको counselor को pay करना नहीं है. तो इसका मतलब है कि basically counselor कहीं ना कहीं से तो पैसा
Okay, so it's Yash Mittal again. I paused the video because I just wanted to let everyone know what he's saying is partially true. You do have counselors who basically sends students only to their partnered universities. But he's not right when he says that all counselors do that. So FYI, when you're deciding which counselor you want to work with, you need to check whether the counselor is actually taking any fees from you or not. And chances are that if the counselor is working with you for free, well, then guess what? He's not going to send you to the best universities. He's going to send you to his partner universities and earn a commission from you. On the other hand, you do have counselors who charge you a fee, and you might feel that you shouldn't enroll with these guys because they're charging you a fee. But the fact of the matter is that independent counselors who do charge fees have your interest in mind because they aren't partnered with any universities. So you can probably feel safer with such counselors. So anyway, let's continue with the video.
कमाएगा, and the counselor will take the money from the university because they're going to charge 10% of your tuition fee because of that. And that means that top universities कभी भी 10% tuition का नहीं देंगी, हमेशा low class, tier 3, tier 2 universities ही लेंगी. And just because you are going to those tier 3 universities, your chances of getting a job out of there are absolutely zero. They send you to bad locations, badly ranked universities. Visa is the biggest problem with the US right now. You will not be able to secure a visa for these tier 3 universities. You can take it from me in writing. After wasting 1 or 2 years, after studying in the US, wasting your parents' money, then you'll go ahead and make a video. Don't study in the US, just like this one. But in that case, you will be giving out wrong information. So please stay away from such schools. The third and one of the biggest reasons is that you don't have a long-term plan. And I can tell you 70% of the people plus don't have a long-term plan. They rely on the H1B lottery. H1B आज की डेट में employer sponsor नहीं करना चाह रहे हैं. Price increase हो गया $10 से $215 पे. So as of today, if you're going to study in the US, it is a must that you should know about the O1 visa. I've made a video about it on this channel, and you need to start preparing for your profile even hopefully before that you actually go to the US. It is an imperative. You need to do it. अगर नहीं करोगे तो पीछे रह जाओगे, जॉब नहीं मिलेगी, आउटपुट नहीं मिलेगा. And if you'd like to learn how to prepare your profile for a visa like the O1, you get in touch with me on biomgrad.com. You'll see my chat over there and I'll let you know for absolutely free. Number 4, and again one of the biggest reasons, is you don't have any money. And if you don't have money and you start performing illegal jobs just to stay in the US, तो इलीगल जॉब से आपको एक ही राउट आगे दिखने वाला है, वो है डिपोर्टेशन का राउट. उसको बचा करके चलो. This could lead to green card denials, visa revocation, bans and deportation, so please don't do that.
Alright, so like I said, I mean, he's moved away from study abroad advice to different visa pathways, and I think he's making a case for not studying in the US because the H1B systems become highly unpredictable, and therefore he's recommending other paths like the O1. Now, he is right that the H1B system is lottery based, but there are some ways around it, which he's not covered in the video. So the H1B, basically, you need to apply this a lottery. Roughly 25% of the people who enter the lottery get selected. But guess what? You can apply multiple times for the H1B. So if you're going for a STEM program in the United States, you will get a 3-year stay back. You don't need your H1B during those 3 years. You can apply thrice for the H1B. And if you do that, you have more than a 70% chance of getting that H1B. The other part that he says is that companies aren't willing to sponsor H1B recruits. But that's actually not the case because oftentimes international students are willing to work harder than local natives, and they're willing to work for lower salaries. So actually, companies are probably the biggest proponents of the H1B program. They actually want people from H1B, and a lot of the FANG companies like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, these companies actually recruit tens of thousands of students every year based on the H1B pathway. And if you are worried about the H1B pathway, then guess what? You have a few organizations in the United States that are CAP exempt, that are H1B exempt, which means that you can work with that company or with that organization without an H1B, and you can't be kicked out of the country for that. He's not even covered that point. So for example, you work with a not-for-profit, you work with academia, you work with hospitals. These are different companies or organizations where you don't need an H1B, right? And frankly speaking, Trump is actually working on a bill right now where he's going to change this whole lottery system and he's going to make it merit-based. We'll see where it goes. Now, again, the recommendation that he comes to at the end is to probably look at other visa pathways such as O1. You can do that, but honestly speaking, O1 is a visa pathway for those people who have shown exceptional talent. So if you have a lot of published research, if you're really at the top of your game in your field, well, then you might be eligible for an O1, otherwise you might not. So that's my take on his advice. What he says isn't wrong, it's just incomplete, all right? And so I thought I need to completely paint the picture for you guys. Right, so let's take a look at the next one.
भाई ऑस्ट्रेलिया आ जाओ, आपकी लाइफ सेट है। यहाँ पर कुछ नहीं करना, सिर्फ और सिर्फ डॉलर्स कमाना है और अपनी लाइफ अय्याशी से गुजारनी है। जब ये बात सुन के एक स्टूडेंट यहाँ पर आता है तो उसको रियलाइज़ होता है कि भाई हर 4 महीने बाद मुझे $16,000 फीस देनी है, हर वीक मुझे $200 रेंट देना है, हर वीक मेरे $100 मिनिमम ग्रॉसरीज के खाने पीने के एक्सपेंसेस हैं, हर वीक मेरा $100 मिनिमम ट्रांसपोर्ट ट्रैवलिंग के मेरे एक्सपेंसेस हैं। उसके बाद जब आप अपनी नींद कुर्बान करके जो आपको जॉब बोली जाती है कि यार $30 पर आवर देंगे, उसमें से गवर्नमेंट आपके टैक्स निकाल के आपको $21 के हाथ में देती है, फिर उसको रियलाइज होता है यार मैं इंडिया, पाकिस्तान और बांग्लादेश में ही ठीक था भाई।
Okay, I think I was smiling or laughing a bit because I couldn't get over the accent. I don't know why this person has an accent. He seems to be speaking in an American accent, but in either Hindi or Urdu. And that was throwing me off a bit. But anyway, what he says about the cost of living is actually true. One of my cousins actually stays in Australia, and she doesn't even stay in an expensive city. She stays in Adelaide, which is relatively inexpensive. But even she tells me that everything is expensive there. Clothes are expensive, commodities are expensive, labor is too expensive. You can't have anyone to help you with, household chores in Australia. You can't hire anyone because it's too damn expensive. So he's right about that. If money is a concern of yours, then please don't go to Australia. If you have loads of money and you want work-life balance, then you can go to Australia.
And तब ये समझ में आता है कि जो 40 लाख की नौकरी हम 5 लाख से कंपेयर कर रहे थे, हम एक डिमेंशन भूल गए कि वो 40 लाख की नौकरी के बाद हमारे खर्चे भी उस 40 लाख की नौकरी जैसे ही हो। वो रेंट उतना ही होगा, वो खाना भी उतना ही होगा। वो यहाँ हमें जो पीजी 5,000 में मिल जाता है, वहां हमें $400-500 देने पड़ेंगे। तो असली सिनेरियो, आपके ऊपर कर्ज है, आप वो 3-4 साल की पढ़ाई के लिए 2-3 जॉब्स कर रहे हैं, 16-17 घंटे काम, कॉलेज और फिर नींद भाड़ में गई। और जब आप ग्रेजुएट करेंगे, आपके पास कोई सेविंग्स तो नहीं होगी, लेकिन उसी दिन से आपकी EMI शुरू। और खुदा ना खास्ता अगर उस समय जॉब्स अवेलेबल नहीं है या इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स के लिए वर्क वीजा आसानी से नहीं मिलता है, इट बिकम्स अ वेरी वेरी डेंजरस सिचुएशन। एंड उस पॉइंट पे ना लोग सर्वाइवल जॉब्स ढूंढना शुरू कर देते हैं। वो जॉब्स जो वो चाहते नहीं थे, जिसके लिए उन्होंने पढ़ाई नहीं करी थी, पर वो जॉब्स जो उनको लेनी पड़ेगी क्योंकि जिंदा तो रहना है, उस देश में तो रहना ही है। वो कर्ज वापस भारत आके भारत की नौकरी के साथ तो नहीं चुकाया जा सकता, वो वहां रह के उसी की सैलरी में, उसी की करेंसी में ही चुक सकता है। एंड आप फंस गए। वो जो ड्रीम था आपका, वो सालों के लिए अब कुचल दिया गया है। एंड फिर
The only thing I have to say about this video is I used to like Ankur Warikoo before he got into content creation. This dude has done his MBA from ISB, alright? He's run a company in Gurgaon for the longest time and I admire what he's done. But as a content creator, he's cringe. He's speaking in this low tone, baritone voice, very seductive voice. That doesn't make his advice real, alright? That doesn't make his advice correct. Now he is right that expenses abroad are more than expenses in India, but you've got to understand that the salaries are way higher than the expenses. All right, so let me take a simple example. On average, an American would earn something like $80,000 a year, and in India, your per capita income is around $3,000 a year. All right, so you can see right off the bat that salaries abroad are 25x of what they are in India on an average basis. Expenses abroad, on the other hand, are only 5x that of India. So at the end of the day, you still have far more money in your bank balance. The other thing that he talks about, the loans, he is right. I mean, the interest rate, you do need to start paying your interest on your loan the moment you finish your education. But nowadays, you also have a lot of loan products which give you a moratorium period where they give you a relaxation of 3 to 6 months after you graduate. All right. Not all banks do this, but quite a few do. All right. So you don't have to get worried about this. And finally, when he talks about the visa situation, I think what he's referring to is probably the United States, because frankly speaking, in most other countries, they are welcoming immigrants and they are in desperate need of immigrants. So if you're really worried about the visa situation, yeah, maybe you can ignore the United States, but all of the countries are fair game, right? So let's take a look at the next one.
मैं और 2 points बोलूंगी, which is a very reality check anybody planning for masters. पहला, universities in Canada का जो tuition fee है, it's much cheaper than US. और सेकेंड थिंग आपको स्क्रैच से स्टार्ट, आपको इंटरव्यूज में हेल्प हो जाएगा कि आपका इंडिया में है थोड़ा सा यू हैव द एक्सपीरियंस, बट यहाँ पे आप 7 years एक्सपीरियंस के बाद भी आ रहे हो, आपको एक स्क्रैच से देखेंगे कि आपके पास कैनेडियन एक्सपीरियंस या यूएस एक्सपीरियंस नहीं। तो नंबर 1 यहाँ ट्यूशन फीस कम है, तो रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट आप बहुत जल्दी ले सकते हो। और बट आपको अगर आप 7 years के एक्सपीरियंस में हो इंडिया, मैं तो नहीं बोलूंगी आप मूव करो, क्योंकि आपको यहाँ वापस से स्क्वायर वन से सब आपको अपनी पोर्टफोलियो वहां से बिल्ड करनी पड़ेगी। तो ये सब पॉइंट्स सोच के आना।
Okay, so she's claiming that universities in Canada are much cheaper than what they are in the US. If that's true, my wallet didn't get the memo because I spent a heck lot on my MBA. All right, and so the fact is, I think she's confusing two things. In Canada, you have a two-tiered education system. You have universities and you have colleges. All right, now universities provide degrees, so they will give you an MBA, they'll give you a master's degree, those sorts of things. Colleges, on the other hand, they offer you postgraduate diplomas or postgraduate certificates. Now, if you're studying at a college, that is going to be way cheaper than the United States. But if you're planning to go to a university which is giving you a degree, all right, not a diploma, not a certificate, it's going to cost you money. All right, it's going to be around 85 to 90% the cost of the top American universities. So if you're looking at something like a UBC or a McGill, or if you're looking at something like a University of Toronto or an Alberta or a Waterloo, these are going to be expensive. But they're expensive for a reason, because kids from these universities do get a good job. So I don't agree with the first part of what she said, but I do agree with the second part. So she mentioned that if you take 7 years of work experience in India or some number like that, and if you come to Canada, then they kind of assume that you don't have any work experience, and that is true for the most part. The reason for that is that the work that you do in India is so different from the kind of work that you do in Canada, and the cultural context is so different that they can't evaluate your skills based on your Indian work experience, right? Now, the only exception to this rule would be if you were planning to do an MBA, all right? The thing with the MBA is no good Canadian business school is going to give you an admit without having at least 2 years of work experience. So you don't have any option but to work in India. Also, the other thing is MBA or business in general is one of those fields where the way things are done in India is very similar to the way things are done abroad. All right, you go for a technical field or a medical field or even law or something like that, then things are very different in India than what they are abroad. So the advice that she's giving you is for all those fields. But if you're thinking of going for a business-oriented program, something in finance, something in marketing, something in international business, or an MBA in general, then you can afford to take work experience in India, and that will be counted when you get your final job offer in Canada. So let's take the next one. Okay, this was just clickbait. I don't know why this is there in the clips. This is just clickbait. He's trying to get people to basically engage with his videos. By the way, this guy is Murad on Run, alright? I follow him on YouTube. I follow him on Instagram. He has some very good advice. He himself, I believe, is doing his MBA from Oxford, right? So he really knows his stuff. But this is clickbaity, I say, because when he says, can I get into a top MBA with GMAT? Technically, the answer is it depends, all right? It depends on the amount of work experience that you have, and it depends upon which business school you're going to. Not all top business schools will accept you without the GMAT score. And many of them will offer GMAT waivers, but only if you have more than 6 or 7 years of work experience. Also, the other thing that you should be aware of is, let's say you go to a business school, you get into the business school without a GMAT score. Now, let's say you're going for strategy consulting or investment banking kind of roles. Well, then guess what? The elite companies do ask for the GMAT score. So, you know, when Boston Consulting Group had come on our campus to recruit students, they were basically asking to interview only those students with a GMAT score of above 740. So while you can get into a business school without the GMAT, you may not be able to get top jobs in consulting and IB without the GMAT, which is why I would suggest that you take the GMAT. And if you find the GMAT difficult, then you could probably take the GRE, because verbal and quant on the GRE does tend to be slightly easier than what it is on the GMAT, and most business schools now accept the GRE.
GMAT क्यों देना चाहिए? GMAT के फायदे सुनो, 3 फायदे बताता हूँ। पहली बात, GMAT MBA के लिए वैलिड है। फॉरेन यूनिवर्सिटीज में MBA कई जगह पे 2 साल की होती है, कई जगह पे 1 साल की होती है। डिस्क्लेमर, उसके लिए कई यूनिवर्सिटीज में फॉरेन में आपको वर्क एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए। हार्वर्ड, स्टैनफोर्ड, येल, वॉटन जाना है तो आपको वर्क एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए, नंबर 1, ठीक है। एक और प्रोग्राम होता है MIM प्रोग्राम, जो ये लोग पूछ रहे हैं। MIM क्या है? मास्टर्स इन मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम, जो HEC पेरिस का। देन यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर द MIM प्रोग्राम। 1 साल के अंदर आपकी लाइफ इज सॉर्टेड। इट्स इक्वल टू MA। लंदन बिजनेस स्कूल, लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स, इनके भी सबके 1 ईयर प्रोग्राम है। जिस निखिल की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, जिसने बैंगलोर छोड़ा, 1 साल का MIM। इज इट इक्वलेंट टू MBA? Answer is no. But is it a stepping stone? Answer is yes. This guy IIT Bombay left India and then abroad. तो अगर आपके पास दो ऑप्शन रहेंगी तो काफी फायदा होगा.
Yeah, he's right about that. All right. So you have two flagship management programs abroad. You have an MBA, which is considered to be for older candidates, people between the age range of 27 to 30. And then you have MIM programs, which is for fresh graduates. So you have a lot of students who basically want to pursue their management education without working in India because they probably want to move abroad sooner. They want to start earning more, whatever it is. And so those guys are now going to get into an MBA program because, like he said, the top business schools do require work experience. On the other hand, if you don't mind getting into entry-level jobs abroad and you want to go abroad immediately, then the MIM is a great option. The teaching style is different because the MIM caters to pre-experienced students. You have more of a lecture-oriented style of teaching, project-based learning. Because the MBA is meant for people with work experience, a more mature audience, most of the teaching happens through case studies. All right. So that's the other factor. And the final factor I would say that decides whether you should go for an MIM or an MBA is your budget. MIM programs tend to be 60% the cost of MBA programs. I'm talking about if you're comparing the MIM program versus the MBA program of the same business school. All right. So that's generally my opinion on those. Either program's fine, depends upon what your budget is, depends upon where you're at in your career, right? So let's have a look at the next one.
Leave jobs. Indians graduating from prestigious Ivy Leagues aren't even able to grab internships. You see, Ivy Leagues are the most sought after colleges by Indians going abroad, and the acceptance rate at these Ivy League schools are insane. For example, Harvard only accepted 3.6% of its 54,000 applicants. But Indians graduating from these universities are finding it difficult to land internships. So one of the reasons cited for this is the economic slowdown, but another less discussed reason is that owing to the presidential election, several companies have an unwritten mandate to hire locals first. You see, hiring Indians requires the company to fund the visa sponsorship, adding to the disincentive faced by Indian students. While American colleges continue to lure foreign students, especially Indians, with 269,000 students enrolled at US universities, their brand value may not be as high as it used to be. What do you think about this? Do you think this shift in Ivy League's brand image is temporary, or is this the end of the American dream?
Okay, so it is partially true that getting a job in the US has become more difficult for international students, but that's not necessarily because of what Trump has said or what Trump is doing. What happened actually was that a lot of the companies in the United States overhired during the COVID period. A lot of the tech companies overhired. And now they're realizing that they basically have a lot of waste on their payroll, right? And so what they're doing is they're getting rid of that waste. Now, they are not recruiting in some areas like software engineering, but they are recruiting heavily in other areas like AI and cybersecurity. So I think you need to be very careful. Recruitment in the US is not based on which university you go to. It is more based on the skill set that you have. So doing, let's say, a program which gives you a skill that is in demand in the job market from a lower ranked university is potentially better from a job point of view than doing a degree like, I don't know, gender studies or something from an Ivy League that's not going to get you a job. And what she refers to as Ivy League students not getting jobs, one reason is that many Indian parents push their kids to go for Ivy Leagues just because of the prestige and the brand value, and they send them to these programs that don't have good job prospects. But the other reason, which again was not discussed by her, is Ivy League students are very secure. They know that if they go anywhere else in the world, they are going to get a good job. All right, because the Ivy League reputation is next to none. In fact, these are the most recognizable universities. So in many cases, it's just the effect of students waiting for the right job. So just because someone doesn't have a job today doesn't mean that he doesn't have offers. It could mean that they have offers, but they're waiting for a better offer. Right? So take whatever she says with a grain of salt. Alright, so that's it. I think we've covered all the clips that we had scheduled for the day. Do let me know in the comments whether you agree with my opinions or not. Don't forget to comment on Hurry the Intern's stickers over here. And if you like the content that we're publishing, do encourage us by clicking on that bell icon and subscribing to our channel. I'll see you in the next one.